Do I finally leave my heart to you? You know the most what it can do. Share it with my sisters on that day. Sons and daughters, take my arms, hold your children long and high. Use my hands to wipe your tears away. When I give up the ghost, I hope there's nothing left for the grave. Brothers dance and sing for me. Use my voice and my feet. A little touch of symphony and a handful of the blues. Friends I lay within your care, a mind I grew when I was there. Water it and it'll give you fruit. Yeah. When I give up the ghost, I hope there's nothing left for the grave. If you can find my bones, I'm home and there's nothing left, nothing left, nothing left for the grave. Dust and ash to ash, every moment till we pass, giving us another chance to give away our flame. Family, both fire and wine, the blood, the spirit, dead alive. Yeah. We all live 'cause we all die the same. When I give up the ghost, I hope there's nothing left for the grave. If you can find my bones, I'm home and there's nothing left, nothing left, nothing left for the grave. All right, patrons, welcome. All right, I think I have everything set up now. Okay. Welcome to July's release party. I am super excited for you guys to hear this month's song, Spittin Love. Looks like we got a couple people online. I have a special guest for you tonight, Matt Watson, who is going to Skype in live from Nashville, Tennessee. He played the lead guitar part on this song. So as you're listening to the song, maybe think about some questions you might have. Matt is a professional guitarist. That means he earns his grilled cheese by touring and recording electric guitar. So, all right. Hold on, I got a message here. Let's see what it says. Maybe. Oh, okay. All right. Well, here we go. without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, here is July's song, Spittin' Love. All right, there you have it. This month's song, Spittin' Love. If that don't make you jam, I'm not really sure what your problem is. So, looks like we've got a couple comments on the drink of choice for tonight's release party. Looks like my wife took the last no-bake cookie. It's heartless. Heartless. Here I am working upstairs. That's fine. I have ice cream in the freezer, so I'm okay. And, Matt Watson, who we're going to talk to here in a minute. He's drinking Tailgate Brewery's Peanut Butter Milk Stout. Both sound rich indeed. All right. So, if you've got any questions for Matt or I as we start to talk, feel free to type them in, and we'll bring them into the conversation. So here we go. I'm going to bring Matt up. Let's see what happens if I click this button. All right. Are you able to hear me, Matt? I think I can hear you, except can I get both of us on the screen at the same time? There we are. Can it be done? It's done. Although you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, which is sitting right in the center, but now it's split screen. So can you move like a little bit? Perfect. There you go. There we go. Excellent. And okay. I just unmuted Skype, so now hopefully, there we go. Now
Am I there now?
everybody can hear both of us. That would be helpful. Apparently, my son just asked. Apparently, he's watching this. Falcon wants to know why you were saying bap bop, boodug bap bop bud.
Are you playing drums with your mouth?
Well, my son, that is called scatting. It is the ancient vocal art of scatting. I will introduce. Apparently, I need to do a better job in my musical training of my 5-year-old. I will teach you about scatting, all about scatting tomorrow. All right, I'm gonna crack open a classy High Life here in my vintage Philip Fox band koozie.
Nice, man. What year is that vintage from?
Probably 2014.
Ooh, going back in the archives.
I know.
The koozie archives.
I found all kinds of stuff when we were moving. It was great.
That's fun.
So, why don't we start with what was it like? Like, what was the process like collaborating on this song?
Super fun. I love doing remote sessions because I'm here in my house at my studio, so everything is familiar to me. But then, you sent me an email and said, "Hey, I got the song. I wonder if you would want to put in your take on it." And you sent in. It was also super nice. You sent in detailed instructions and knew what you wanted, which was great. That like vintage, growly AC/DC thing, super fun. I know we probably spent like 4 or 5 emails back and forth about, hey, let's do this, let's try this, go for this, and then knocked it out. It was pretty quick process, I think, at least in the stuff I played on before. So very, very easy to work with.
Nice. So how was it? I'm actually curious how it was different from other remote work you've done.
Yeah, so usually what will happen is someone will send me an iPhone demo of like their acoustic guitar and say, here's what the song's going to sound like. Can you play over this? And there's usually just like an acoustic guitar and a vocal. So there's no, or even less. I've had people just send me a track with like a laid out version of the instrumentals with no vocals. So the last thing I want to do is play over top of somebody's vocal, which is pretty impossible to not do when there's just you playing to a track.
Right.
So it was nice. You had a pretty fleshed out idea that you sent me. So that was a nice change of pace for me.
Nice. Well, and it was cool too because you use Apple's Logic recording software as well as I do, and I've never done a remote collaboration with someone who uses the same software. So we were able to just like zip up a file and send it over, and you opened it right up, and you were tracking. Yeah.
Yeah. I've worked with the other one that everyone uses. It's called Pro Tools, and that's usually what I get files from people, and it's like playing Tetris with all the tracks of like, hey, here's where things were supposed to be, but you have a different program, so no good. So
wait, the drums aren't on the offbeat; they're on the oh, okay, all right.
Who knew? Snares on 1 and 4. It's jazz.
Nice. Yeah, it was. So I've done a couple remote collaborations. I actually haven't done a lot of them, honestly. But you and another pianist that I've used before, you guys both did something that I thought is really cool and super helpful and really pro. Like you sat down and you recorded multiple versions of your guitar part. You were like, here's option A for this, and here's option B for this. And then the solo at the end, you had like 3 or 4. You had like option A, version 1 and 2, and then option B, version 1 and 2. And that was super helpful in sitting through it, because like obviously my ear is going to be slightly different than your ear, than someone else's ear, And so when I sit down having like all of those pieces to work with, it's like I get to pull in all the strengths of all of those and just make it work. For the mix. So
cool. That's good to know. That's helpful. Yeah, that comes from having done it enough times of just sending one take, and then someone being like, "Oh, well, what if it was this little bit?" So I'm like, now I'll just send 3 ahead of time, and they can like, because it's nice because you can just, if what you hear, what you like, you put it into that take. So honestly, it's a surprise at the end of the song to hear what someone like you has comped into the whole track. So it's super cool at the very end to like hear the producer's take on your takes.
That's sweet. That's sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wondered if you could talk for a minute about so you used I guess we'll call it a technology called Kemper, right?
Yeah.
Is that a good way to describe?
Yeah.
I'm trying to like keep it like very like
Very high level.
yeah. So like just describe like so normally when you'd record an electric guitar, right? You'd have a guitar and then a cable and then maybe some pedals that affect the sound and then a large tube head amplifier that you could adjust things on and then speakers and you have to mic all that. But what does the Kemper help you do?
Yeah, so the Kemper helps me live in an apartment and record at any hour of the day. So it's all self-contained. It's not an amplifier. What it does is it takes a snapshot of a real amplifier, and you can kind of equate it to like almost like a filter on Instagram or like Photoshop, where it looks at a real amplifier, figures out what it's doing, and then allows you to do that yourself, but with just a computer program. So there's no speaker to it. It's all in the box per se. So it's a huge piece of technology that's been really helpful for me, both live and in the studio, because it takes real amplifier sounds, but lets me use them at bedroom volumes.
That's awesome. And I have to say, I was super impressed. Because in this song, like, there's the drums, a vocal, and two guitars, right? So
yeah.
Like, if you can't like hide something behind something else, right? Like, if it doesn't sound real, you're gonna hear that. And your guitar's like when it comes in, it's the loudest thing in the song, you know?
Yeah.
So we were really specific about the sound we wanted, and part of this is the craft, right? Like we know what amplifiers and stuff that AC/DC used back in the 70s, so we knew that was kind of like our sonic template, and you were able to find a Kemper profile that, I mean, I think I tweaked a tiny bit. I changed the EQ a little bit on the guitar when it came down to mixing it. But other than that, it was just like, yep, that's what that's supposed to sound like.
And I mean, like, to do that with a real guitar amplifier, I would have had to rent an amp, carry it all the way up the stairs, and then record between like the hours of noon and 1 o'clock on like a Tuesday, so no one called the police.
Right. Yep. Yeah, I'm very fortunate. My neighbors, I typically do my recording between 11 and 3. Like, that's my window, a couple days a week when the sitters come. But yeah, I mean, I tracked my guitar through a 50-watt Marshall JCM 800. I mean, I only had it on like 3 or 4. It has actually.
So you just like barely rattling the foundation of the house.
Basically, yeah. But the neighbors are cool, and they didn't really complain too much about it. So
man, that's great.
Yep.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm using mostly headphones over here just because there's so many. I mean, there's dogs and stuff below us that would go howling. So, yeah. What's the remote process like for you? I mean, how's that feel to email someone and say, here's my song, do something with it? What's that like as an artist?
Honestly, I love working with pros like you who are really good at their craft. When I would go, like when we had the band and we'd go into the studio, we'd spend a ton of time up front doing pre-production, which in layman's terms is basically recording it all once. You remember when you were in school and your teacher was like, you have to turn in a rough draft and the final version of your paper. Like the pre-production is the rough draft,
Yeah.
But instead of just like barf, barf, poop, poop, and then actually writing the paper, like you're actually trying, So we would do that, and then when we would go into the studio, you'd spend a ton of time like trying to dial everything in and getting the right sounds and stuff, and I always functioned in a producer role there, and I got pretty good at being able to like because it's hard sometimes to describe like I need more crunch out of the guitar, less bite, more crunch, less woof, more snap, describing sounds with words is tough, but you learn how to do that somewhat. So but it was grueling, like by the time you'd get everybody set up. I mean, just to like track one person, like when we'd bring a pedal steel player in or something, it'd be like 6-8 hours later, like you'd have the tracks, and I'm sure it wasn't. I'm putting myself in their shoes. Like it's a little intimidating when you're sitting there playing and they're like, can you go back 4 bars and instead of that C sharp, can you do a walk down? I'd be, yeah, let's try that. Okay. You know, so it's cool because, you know, I kind of like, I get to set a vision for the song, which I feel like is one of my strengths. And then I get to send it to somebody who's a much better musician than I am and say, like, here's the vision, like, within these parameters, like, just do your thing, you know, like, you do you. And to get that back and to have, like, all of those ideas that are, you know, because your creativity is different than mine. Your musical expression is going to add something different than mine would. So it's actually very nice and refreshing to hear those fresh ideas, those new ideas, and then be able to put those, you know, into the song and have that combination. And to do that without all of the, like, just, I mean, it's just a ton of overhead to do it physically in a studio present, like, all together,
Definitely.
you know?
Yeah. Cool. That's awesome. I never knew how, you know, from the other side of the glass, what that's like. So that's cool to get a little insight.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I haven't had a bad experience with it yet. I mean, I haven't done a ton of it, and usually I'm pretty picky about the, like, who I choose, you know, to collaborate with. I usually pick an instrumentalist who, like, already is, like, pretty steeped in that style. Speaking of which, like, I should probably tell folks, like, how we met.
Oh, that'd probably be, like,
Yeah, that
a
would
little
be good.
context might
That'd
be
be
good.
great. Yeah. So Matt and I have known each other for, it's going, what, 7 years?
Yeah,
8
it's been
years
that long,
now?
I think.
So when I first met Matt, you were playing in, what was it called? New Park?
Steel Creek.
Steel Creek. That's right.
Yep.
And I remember 2 things about my first interaction with Matt. I was like, who's that dude with the awesome guitar amplifier? Because you were playing, what, a Matchless then? Or what was it?
I was playing that Red Morgan.
The Morgan.
Ferrari Red.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And then I was like, man, who designed your guys' website? And you were like, that was me. And I was like, okay, well, this guy's, you know, got good taste. Anyway, I mean, we were all kind of hacks back then, you know. But
Dude, it's a wild time. Yeah.
But I remember watching you because, you know, you then played with, like, Mark Leach and some other folks, and so, like, we'd, you know, throughout a year we'd end up sharing the stage together like 3 or 4 times, and I remember watching you over just a few years go from, like, yeah, he's a guitar player to, like, oh, someone's like been practicing and, like, has, you know, there's guys that practice and they just, you know, they just don't have, like, the talent to really shine with that practice, you know. But you were like, you could tell you're putting in the work and you had the acumen to, like, be really good. And then it got to the point where, like, you were the best guy on the stage with any band you were playing in.
Oh, thanks, man. That's too kind.
Well, and then we did that. We did a benefit for a mutual friend of ours, a cancer benefit for his dad.
Yeah.
And you guys were like, let's just learn a couple songs and we'll just play them and you can just sing. And I was like, okay, make it hard for me, you know. And man, you were like, you learned all the licks and, like, it was cool, man.
Thanks, man. It's funny because, I mean, I grew up in Marysville, so just outside Columbus, and before we officially met, I felt like I saw you everywhere I went. Like, I would go to Powell, see you playing at a festival. I would go to Dublin, see you playing at a festival. Like, Polaris, all the festivals, and it's like, this guy is everywhere, and his band is super good too. And then, we ended up meeting and talked about, like, even, like, graphic design and stuff like that. And it's like, this guy is really cool. Like, I want to be like this dude. And then, that gig, the one gig where I had gone away and, like, practiced in the woodshed alone for hours at a time and then come back. And I remember you walked at the end of the night and you're like, hey, man, I can tell you've been practicing. I was like, oh, it's all worth it after that. It has been all worth it up to this point.
Oh, man.
So thank you for that. 'Cause I needed that at that time.
Yeah, dude. I mean, you know, it's so funny. I don't know. I won't get into all the reasons about why it might be with our society, but our society just really doesn't, like, recognize, like, quality, you know? Like, we just don't know I mean, you know, you see the videos, it's like you have some virtuoso playing in the subway in New York, and it's just like, meh. You know, you could put that.
Nickel.
Yeah, you could put that on any street corner in America. You could, you know, because it is on every computer in America, right? Like,
right.
Like, that quality is there, but just most people don't have the ability to recognize it. So,
yeah,
I feel like it's it's a life mission. Like when I recognize someone is, producing, making something that's really quality in any, field or craft that they're in, like I want to take them. I mean, if they're washing a window well, I just want to be like, dude, like,
Yeah, pursue the craft.
spot on, man. Yeah, like
Yeah,
I want to recognize that and encourage that. Anyway.
I think more folks should. It's a good spot to be in. And I just saw Michelle Pierce messaged in and said, "Hey, Philip and Matt. Oh, she has the vintage koozies too.
Oh, it's popping on
Hey,
here.
Michelle.
I have a set of those vintage koozies. Absolutely love this song. Matt is one of my favorite guitarists. Matt is awesome. He is awesome. Hey, Michelle.
Miss you, Michelle.
Yes, our hearts, love go out to you. I just saw your post. So sorry about your fall. We love you. We love you.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious, aside from sitting in your studio and recording, you also get out on the road and play, right?
Yes, I do.
So why don't you talk to us about what that's, maybe, I don't know, what that's looked like in the last year for you.
Yeah, so about 1 year ago, I was in a full-time band doing kind of similar to what you did before. We did 200 dates in 1 year, and it was a grind. It was in an RV with usually no air conditioning, and so
Feel your pain.
There was six of us. Yeah, there was six of us in an RV and a bulldog, and I mean, not the smelliest breed, but a smelly breed. So we did that for about a year, and then this past year I've done just some fill-in dates to different artists. Like this weekend I have a gig with a guy I've never met before. He sent me a text about a month ago and said, "Hey Matt, a friend sent your name my way. Here's my tunes. Can you learn them?" So I'm going to meet him tomorrow, and then we'll go play a show the next day. That's kind of what touring in Nashville feels like.
How many songs are you guys going to play?
25.
Holy smokes. Okay, so you've just been woodshedding on those, and you'll show up. And...
Yep. Yeah. We'll hope they go well.
So do you get most of your gigs through like word of mouth? Is there like how does that happen?
Yeah, I would say at this point it's 100% word of mouth. Like everyone's always either, "Hey, a friend sent you my way," or a friend says, "Hey man, I can't play this gig. Are you available?" And that's usually just how it goes, because you want to recommend your friend, you want to get your friends playing out there, and you want to know that someone's going to do a good job. So like if you know someone, you feel safe recommending them for your spot. And you want to pick someone who's better than you so that you don't screw over your artist and pick somebody bad to fill in for you.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Which is probably the opposite of what you would think, but you really don't want to have a fill-in just be a train wreck, because then they're just mad at you. So.
Yep.
Yeah. Are you still playing any shows this year?
So I have I'm doing one club show in October. You ever been to Route
Cool,
30?
where at?
Route 33, Rhythm and Brews, up in Wapakoneta?
No, but I've always heard that name. Yeah.
It's just a fun space. I mean, when I was with the band, we always loved it. It's family run. Ron runs the door, books the bands. His wife runs the kitchen. His daughter cooks the pizzas. Like his son runs the sound. Like it's that kind of thing.
Fantastic.
It's an old. The place was built in the 40s it's on old Route 33. So like it runs parallel to Route 33 back when it was just a 2-lane.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so it was just a post-war roadhouse, and it has been consistently entertainment since the 40s. That had a second life as a strip club at some point in the 60s, but then it's been
make money.
Yeah, music back and forth. But it's cool. The stage is small. Like the seating is kind of tiered as it goes back. They can seat about 100, 120 people, and they feed them while you're playing. So it's kind of like a really intimate listening room dinner club. Like all of those things put together.
That's awesome. The more live shows I go to, the more I enjoy going to those style shows, and really I feel like you get more of an experience at that instead of just someone says, "Hey, how was the band?" and you go, "I don't know, they were really loud. I don't remember anymore."
Right. The lights were bright, and there were yes.
I had pizza, I think. Yeah, so that's cool. I love doing the more intimate, almost like storyteller type shows.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. So I'll play for 90 to 100 minutes straight and just share stories in between. It'll just be me on stage. And yeah, it'll sound great. That room always sounds awesome.
That's awesome. Cool, man.
Yeah. And then after the first of the year, I'm still trying to firm up the date. I'm going to do an art installation with some artist friends of mine
Really?
we're gonna do multimedia. So I'll be doing sonic art, and
Yeah.
they'll have some visual art installed, and we're working on some other pieces to it too. So
Very cool. Very cool. Is that going to be in Columbus area?
that'll be right in
Any
Delaware,
details?
right in downtown
Delaware.
Delaware. Yep,
Sweet.
yep.
Man, I will come back for that, honestly. That'd be cool to see.
Okay, okay. I'll let you know.
Yeah.
That'd be cool, man.
Sweet.
So let's see if we have any questions. It doesn't look like anybody has questions. So, do you have any other questions?
Oh, man. Favorite grilled cheese spot?
You know, I can't remember the last time I had a grilled cheese. Isn't that
Whoa.
sad?
You've been off the road, I can tell.
Oh, all I remember about being, well, no, I remember lots of things about being on the road, but food wise, I just remember thinking, like, I have to eat vegetables every opportunity they're available because
Yeah.
I don't know the next time I'll be able to eat vegetables, which means that I might be hurting for a long time if I
Yeah.
don't eat vegetables when I can.
That that fits right into the road rules. There's like four things you never know you'll get on the road, so when you see it, you take them.
Okay.
Number one's a shower. Rare, very rare. Number two is a bed, so hotels are choice. Vegetables and water, because invariably you'll show up to a show and they'll say, "Hey, can I get some water?" And they go, "Here's Miller Lite." That's all we have. So those four things. But yes, vegetables, very clutch. No one thinks about that.
You don't until you go 2 weeks without eating vegetables, and then you wonder
Yeah,
you're doubled over in pain.
I'm a hash brown now. Yeah,
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
yeah,
man.
man.
All right, all right. So since we're talking about the road, what is your uh what's your most prominent slash ridiculous memory from being on the road?
Hmm. Man, ridiculous. Oh, I yes, this is a great one, and you know the guy too. So, do you remember Ben Zucker?
Yes.
Yes. All right. So, in Steel Creek, I was in a band with a man named Ben Zucker, and if you've seen Parks and Recreation, you've seen Ron Swanson, so you already know who Ben Zucker is like. So, imagine being on the road with Ron Swanson, and we're driving from Columbus, Ohio, to Chicago to go play two shows. And on the way there, we stop in Valparaiso. I think it's Indiana. And there is a Chipotle, and Ben is dying to get Chipotle, but it's also snowed. And to get from where we get gas at to the Chipotle is down a large embankment. And so Ben jumps out of the truck, says, "I'm going to go get Chipotle by myself," runs, jumps on the embankment, and slides on his butt down the entire embankment that is now a mud bog. And so he didn't bring backup jeans for whatever reason. So he goes into the Chipotle, goes into the bathroom,
No.
and proceeds to clean himself off in the sink like a bird bath. The problem with this is that he uses the sink as a rest for his his butt as he's cleaning his shirt off. The sink breaks off the wall, and it looks, because the bathroom is covered in mud at this point, something else has
Oh
happened in the bathroom.
no.
So he walks out. He
Oh
sees our
my.
friend Ryan, who's playing bass, and Ryan says, "Hey man, what do you want to order?" And Ben goes, "We have to leave now," and just grabs Ryan, and we leave. We go to Kohl's and buy him new pants, and we leave Valparaiso and never return. And that is
And
my
there's
favorite, my favorite story of being on the road.
it's somewhere in Valparaiso. There's a Valpo's most wanted man, and it's just a picture of Ron Swanson.
Yeah, yeah. If you see Ron, tell him to come back. I believe Ben did say he tipped just the cashier. He just threw a 20 at the cashier and said, "I'm sorry," as they left. But he was very immediate about leaving that location.
I can't even imagine the person who had to go to that bathroom. Like,
No, because you can only imagine what they're thinking. The sink is broken and the walls are covered in this substance.
well,
Who
sure.
knows?
I went to the Silver Dome, and like I've seen that.
Yeah, man. So that's my favorite road story. Well, you have to have good road stories. What's your favorite?
I always end up talking about Chicago and the times we played when the Cubs were in the World Series.
Oh wow.
Because
Yeah.
it was just so, like, so many things about that were so surreal. The best way I found to describe it is if you basically took all the people that go to an Ohio State football game, so if you've ever been to an Ohio State football game, and you basically just, like, dropped those people in the middle of just some small town America, because that's the way Wrigleyville is. It's just like
Yeah.
old buildings, narrow alleys, everything's tight. Nothing's tall. It's not built for large groups of people. You know, Wrigley Field holds what, like 5,000? It has like 5,000 seats or something. Like, it's the whole thing is just. And so when the Cubs are going to the World Series, like, it was just insane. And so I remember multiple things about that. I remember, you know, usually between sets, like, I'll, like, step outside to get some fresh air or something. And so at this club, like, I walked out to the front door, and the bouncer's like, you can't go out there. And I said, well, I'm with the band. Like, the place is at capacity, so I get it, right? I'm like, I'm with the band, like, wristband, you know.
Were you at Old Crow?
It was Old Crow, yes.
Okay.
So I'm like, I'm with the band. He's like, no one can go out there. I was like, why is that? He's like, oh, because there was gunfire. Oh, okay, I'm good. I'll just, you know, just hang on. So I go to the back exit, and I walk out the back door, and there's a cop there, and he's like visibly sweating. This is like not, you know, it's cool, but he's like visibly sweating and upset. And I'm like, I just kind of look at him, and he looks at me. I'm like, what's going on? He's like, if anything happens down here, no one's getting out. He's like, we can't clear the lanes. We can't clear the. He's just like freak. Like, this is a Chicago PD, you know.
Yeah.
I'm like,
oh man.
Okay, I'm gonna go step on this stage with a spotlight on me, and but I have to say, the Chicago police, like, they like figured this out. They started about 2 blocks up from where we were. They got horse-mounted police officers, and they rode the horses shoulder to shoulder through the street and pushed everybody out of the street. And they made all the clubs lock the doors. So no one could get into a club, no one could get out of a club. They just pushed everybody on the street all the way past Wrigleyville. And I don't know where they went from there, but they weren't in Wrigleyville anymore.
There's nothing past Wrigleyville besides the highway, but good for them. That's a really good technique. I would not have thought to use the horses as a human snowplow.
Yes, that's basically what it was. So it was just crazy. That whole experience was nuts. And then come to find out, like, that, I think it was like the next week or something, the city basically came in and told all the clubs, like, you can be open like an hour before the game and like an hour after the game, no entertainment, no extra anything, like, you know, just so it was.
That's a wild place. I love Old Crow. That's some of the best brisket and best cornbread I've ever had in my life there. I believe the chef's name was Tony. It was that good. I remember the chef's name.
Tony Scruggs. Well, here's a funny story. For, I mean, we're going over, but whatever. If you guys are on, you want to hang out. Here's a funny story. So, I've never seen like so stark a contrast from, like, you know, you go into a restaurant sometimes and you're like, man, this place was great like 2 months ago. Like, what the heck happened? You know?
Yeah.
So, you know, we, like you, had played there, met Tony, like, food's amazing. The dude's, like, just a food artist. Like, he really cared, knew what he was doing, and he ran a tight ship in the kitchen. And if you walked back in the kitchen probably like we did to, like, get up to a room or whatever, like, you saw who was working back there. Like, they're not making that brisket on their own accord, right? Like,
no.
Tony's telling them exactly what to do, and they're doing it, and it's turning out good.
Yep.
So, Tony flies out to California to open the Southern California branch of Old Crow. This was, you know, when we were playing there. They had asked us to, like, go out, and they wanted to fly us out there to, like, play the opening until we gave them the price tag, and then they were like, maybe no, we'll just. I'm like, it's like you guys are like an hour from LA, just like whatever. You'll find a band. It's not hard. Anyway, so Tony's in California, and we order our normal food, and they treat you like kings there, right? So it's like, all the food, fill the table, you know? And, like, the cornbread comes out, and we're like, you couldn't even cut into to it.
Oh.
And then the meat came out, and it was like dry and burned, and the beans were, I mean, just everything was like, not even, I would go beyond bad to say like pretty inedible. Like it was almost inedible.
Painful.
Yeah.
Oh.
And it kind of broke our heart because we knew like how good it could be, and you're waiting.
Yeah.
It's like the one gig that month that feeds you
Yeah,
well,
man.
and you're like, yes. And it was awful. It was awful. And that was for me, was like realizing how huge of a difference one person in the kitchen makes who knows what they're doing. And when that person's gone, like how quickly it can just fall off the wagon.
Man, that's crazy. They're just hiring the rats. Speaking of rats, I saw the biggest rat I've ever seen in my life in the Chicago, the alley behind Old Crow during a Cubs game. It looked like the size of like a raccoon, and I wasn't gonna mess with it, so we just drove on. A lot of culture down there behind Wrigleyville.
The people there, I have to say, the Wrigleyville folks in Chicago were awesome. Like,
Oh yeah.
like not you didn't get like that pompous like city vibe thing. They were all super friendly, just like there to hang out, and like, I mean, we got so many invites to like go hang out with people, but of course we couldn't afford to stay in Chicago, right? So we had to every night we'd have to drive like 50 minutes outside of the city.
You're staying at Gary, yeah.
Literally, yep. We stayed in Gary. Yep.
At the Red Roof Inn, probably. Yep.
Yes, actually. The last
That's
few
wild.
times. It was the cheapest place. And
It's $50 a night, and it's nice.
And they had just remodeled it. Yes, exactly.
Yep.
Dude, banned.
What a small world. Yes.
That's hilarious. Oh,
man.
man. But so it was one of those weekends where we were playing back-to-back nights in Chicago. And they would bounce us between Wrigleyville and the River North location, which was just around from the House of Blues. And so we had played one the night before, driven to Gary, right? And we were going to leave the next, to go back the next day, and our van won't start. And at that point, we don't know what's wrong. And, when you are loaded up and like ready to go to the gig, you don't have a ton of time to troubleshoot a vehicle.
No.
So we did the few things that we could think of, and we were like, well, at this point, we have a couple options. We can cancel and stay here and fix our van, or we can find another vehicle. So we go to the front desk, right? And we're like, you have a shuttle minivan. Can we borrow it? Can we rent it? Can we buy it? Like, whatever.
Buy it.
And right. And they're like, no. Okay, thanks. So then Jonathan's like, well, why don't we call an Uber? And I'm thinking, I mean, how many Ubers would we actually need to fit all of our stuff? So now we're paring everything down, right? Like, do you absolutely need that? Do you absolutely?
Yeah.
So like we get it all out, and we decide that there's no Uber XLs anywhere in Gary, Indiana.
Of course.
So okay, all right. So we're like, okay, so we need 2 Ubers, like. So and once you like hail your Uber, you can call your driver, right? So we're like verifying the make and model of their vehicle. We basically
what's the cubic square inches in the bag?
Exactly.
Yep.
We basically get driven. They were very similar. One was a Hyundai Santa Fe, and the other one was something else similar to that. We basically get driven, us, the 4 of us, and all of our gear, from Gary, Indiana, to downtown Chicago, in 2 Ubers to play our gig. It cost us.
What was that rate?
I want to say it cost us. I don't remember if it was $200 one way or $200 round trip. I don't remember. I have $200 in my head for some reason. Jonathan would remember the price, though. I'm positive.
Yeah. Man, that's a Uber.
Getting somebody to drive to downtown Chicago from Gary at like 7 o'clock at night was no problem. Trying to get 2 people to drive from downtown Chicago to Gary, Indiana at 3 a.m. was a little more complicated.
I hadn't thought about that part of the equation either.
Well, Jonathan actually like talked to one of the guys. I don't remember all the details, but I remember the whole thing was just like, what are we doing with our lives? Like,
yeah, man.
This is just nuts. That was the first time that we almost got stranded in Chicago. There was that same van. Jonathan and I got stranded 2 hours west of Chicago, which is nowhere, Indiana.
Yeah.
On the turnpike, Easter Sunday, with a dead fuel pump in that van.
Oh.
So our drummer had stayed in town with some family in Chicago. David grabbed an Uber to a bus station and rode a Greyhound home. And
That
Jonathan
sounds like an almost song.
and Jonathan and I sat in nowhere, Indiana for 2 days while we got the van towed and had somebody put a new fuel pump. I say new fuel pump in it. When we got back and had
New to you.
Exactly, and had our mechanic look at it, he was like, yeah, they basically pulled this out of a wreck in a junkyard and put it in. So it's also an 18-year-old fuel pump. We should probably just replace this now.
Yeah, but they're banking on you not driving back to see them, or not being able to drive back to see them and complain about it.
What are you going to do, right? You just
I'll drive back there.
pay the money and say, thank you, sir.
Yep.
You had a
Oh,
tow
man.
truck and came on Easter Sunday. That's what it came down to.
So, yeah, it did.
Yep. Oh, man. Well, here you go, guys. A little behind the scenes, brief in the life of. Let's give a hand to Matt Watson for playing some screaming guitar and joining
Thank you all.
us for this release party. Matt, I look forward to collaborating with you in the future.
Absolutely, man. Me too. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it so much. It was truly an honor.
Awesome, man. Yeah, much love. We'll talk soon. We'll talk to you guys
brother.
soon. All right. See you, patrons.